Was 2023 the resurgence of the gaming handheld, or was it just a flash in the pan? We're going to talk about that and so much more in this episode of Decked Up, a Gaming and Tech podcast. Hello, everyone. This is Mekel Kasanova, the host of Decked Up, a Gaming and Tech podcast, and we're coming at you from Honolulu, Hawaii. And this is the last episode of Decked Up that will be happening in 2023. I gotta be honest, I'm a little nervous because going into 2024, I'm literally not sure what to expect. But nonetheless, this is the last podcast that we're doing this year. 2024 is going to be a whole crazy year. But the thing I want to talk about is with this particular episode is the resurgence of the gaming handheld. Now, we all know that, before handhelds were dominated by Nintendo with the Game Boys, the DS line, 3DS, and now the Switch. But did we ever think that we would get to a point where we would have gaming handheld PCs that are offering equivalent, if not better value than something Nintendo's putting out, and is actually being able to sustain itself on the same market for the most part? I mean, they're all within the gaming niche space, but there's something that I never really thought we were ever going to see before. So I want to talk about that. I want to dive into this topic, and I want to talk about why this is great for us as gamers, having more choice. And really, it comes down to the piece of plastic you want to use to control your characters on screen. But I just want to say this: someone who is a gamer who's been gaming for over 30 years, I never thought that we would go back to the 90s where there were so many different gaming handhelds. And here we are. But before we dive further into that, we got to pay the bills, got to keep the lights on. So we're going to have a word from this video's sponsor. I wanted to take some time today to talk about why I think you need to pick up this chair, the E1 Racing Champion Series chair. Before we get into this video, if you want to pick up this chair at an extremely good discount, then make sure you use the code that's going to be on the screen right here. The link down in the description below that takes you to the site to purchase the chair, and just throw in the code and there you go. So all that being said, let's talk about this chair. So look, brace yourselves. This is just not another gaming chair. It's a throne for kings and queens of gaming. I've lounged in this bad boy for almost a year, and it hasn't cracked or given out under the pressure of my weight at all. And I'm not a small guy. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2". I'm 208 pounds. But when I had this chair initially, I was 6'2", and I was 290 pounds. So that's a lot of weight that's sitting on this chair. And almost a year later, it's still holding up. And I have to say, when it comes to the weight of this chair, it is definitely heftier than my old gaming chair. But the weight, it just screams quality. From the polyurethane armrest to the memory foam embracing every curve of your back. All right, so let's talk about the juicy details, features, and specs. Now, the armrests, you can slide them and rotate them. You can lift them with the 4D adjustable setup. As far as height adjustability, it's got an easy lever, so you're soaring up or you're sinking down. It's got a recline to relax feature, so if you want to have a fancy power nap, you can do that. You can go from 85 to 155 degrees with another handy lever. You can also utilize tilt control, so, because sometimes you just want to rock. It's sturdy with a durable steel frame and 120 millimeter class 4 gas lift that can support up to a whopping 400 pounds. The base, well, it's made out of aluminum 5-star wonder. It's got you anchored. Now, how's the ride? Rolling around, silky smooth on both carpets and hardwood. Adjusting, everything is at your fingertips. Whether I'm reclining for a quick siesta or adjusting for a marathon gaming session, this chair didn't just meet expectations, it obliterated them. All right, so wrapping everything up, here are my final thoughts on the E1 Racing Champion Series chairs. If you're serious about your gaming and, more importantly, your comfort, this chair isn't just an option. It's the choice. All right, so now that the sponsorship part is over, let's go ahead and talk about. All right, so now that the sponsorship, blah, blah, blah. All right, so now that the sponsorship segment is over, let's go ahead and talk about the gaming handheld resurgence, because it is really crazy. It's really crazy that we're in 2023 going into 2024 and you've got so many handheld options. I mean, the millions of INEO devices, and no, I know I bring up millions of devices. I know they don't have millions, but they release so many per year that it's kind of crazy trying to keep up with it. It's one of those situations where I kind of wonder, are they, what is their return on investment? Like, are they making up for as much as they're charging and how frequently they're putting out? There's got to be some losses somewhere within there. But you've got all the INEO devices, you got AOK Zoes, you've got, Steam Deck, and then you've got the things that come out this year. You got the Asus ROG Ally, you've got the Lenovo Legion Go, you've got the Steam Deck OLED, which, again, it's a mid-generation refresh. But you've got that, and then you got your Nintendo Switch, you've got the Analog Pocket, you've got the Ambernick devices. There's so many gaming handheld devices that are out there now, and it's just really crazy. It feels like we're in the 90s again, because I didn't think we were ever going to get to this point where it's like such a massive resurgence was going to be occurring, and yet it is. It's here. Whether or not you want to, play Nintendo games on the Nintendo Switch, I mean, technically you can play it on the Steam Deck and other PCs as well if you do emulation. I ain't gonna tell you how to do that, but I mean, Google is your best friend. But you can play on the Nintendo Switch, get great battery life on that, either the Switch Lite or the Switch OLED or Switch V2. You know, um, Also the OLED screen being as beautiful as it is. You got access to all the Nintendo games that are available on the Switch, plus Switch Online if you do pay for that. And then outside of that, you've also got other things too. I mean, you've got, the Analog Pocket, which is one of my favorite devices that came out. It actually came out last year, and I had it last year, but I did a bunch of tutorial videos, all outdated at this point. I mean, there's no point in watching them because so many things, which is one of the reasons I don't do a lot of tutorial videos, is because by the time you make it, it's probably already outdated before you can publish it. So it is what it is. But nonetheless, Analog Pocket, if you still have your Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color and the original Game Boy carts, you can play on that. If you get the adapters, you can play Game Gear, you can play TurboGrafx 16, you can play the Neo Geo Pocket, or you can just, emulate on that too, because it's got you can utilize FPGA to emulate the other consoles. I believe it goes up to CPS3 at this point. I know CPS1, CPS2, and then CPS3, Neo Geo, and all the consoles underneath that, except for I believe PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, and 64. But I feel like you're gonna be able to like eventually add those on, and if you use a wireless controller, you can or even a wired controller, you can reconfigure the settings for that too. So I mean, you got a lot of options with that. They were hard to get initially, especially with scalpers being out there, but now you can get an Analog Pocket in a variety of colors like the original Game Boy Color. And then you've also got the Steam Deck, which is really what ushered in, and it's not the first mobile, and a lot of people make this mistake of saying that it's the first mobile gaming PC, and it's not. There have been many before that, but this is the first commercially successful one to ever do it and do it as well as it has, and to the point where it's a mainstream product, right? It's like, if you want to get games on your Switch, you can, but if there are multi-platform games that are available on PC as well as the Switch, if you've got a Steam Deck, you're better off getting it on the Steam Deck, just because you're going to have substantially better performance. You're not going to have, like, an example, if you're to play Borderlands, or any of the 4 Borderland games that are on the Switch, or if you were to play BioShock, 1, 2, or Infinite, you're going to run into the FPS lock, frames per second lock, of it being locked to like 30 frames per second. And if there's too much going on, it may dip below that. But you can run these games on your Steam Deck at 60 frames per second. And with the Steam Deck OLED, you can go up to 90, 90 hertz if you want, for these older titles. So like, you're at a point where it's like, when you're looking at options and especially with the deck, the OLED variation having such a better battery life, you're going to be able to play these older games for longer, especially if you're doing emulation. If you get EmuDeck, that's going to be really good too. You know, say you want to play something like me, I play a lot of retro PS2 games, PS1 games, so like Xenogears, El Saga, SNES titles that never came here to the United States, like Terranigma and such. And when you're playing these games, you don't have to worry about, oh, I only get 2 or 3 hours. You're probably going to get 7 to 9 hours battery life if you're running emulation on it, if you're playing older AAA games or older AA games. Um, and then you got the other devices that have come in this year, the ROG Ally, and then the Lenovo Legion Go. Spec wise, very similar devices. Performance wise, there's some level of parity that's there now that wasn't there before. But these are two devices from two mainstream companies that have come out and are trying to get a piece of that pie that Valve has with the Steam Deck. And with how successful both of those are going, even though there are a lot of people that are saying that the ROG Ally was a failed product, look, trust me, I was there for that. I remember all the comments. But people said that was a failed product, and yet it's sold well. It's been selling very well. You've got the Lenovo Legion Go, another great device that is selling incredibly well and offers potentially better performance. And you got more options as far as connectivity. You've got the dual USB-C ports. You've got the removable Joy-Cons. You've got the bigger screen. It's a 2K screen. It's not OLED, but it's definitely damn sure close enough to it with how good it looks. And it's just this is so much choice right now. And going into 2024, we're gonna see other companies are going to be dropping handhelds. We're going to see stuff from Acer / Predator Gaming. We're going to see stuff from Alienware. I mean, we saw a prototype from Alienware back in 2020 that never came out. We're going to see that come out, whatever they got cooking up. We're going to see more companies getting into this fray because this is now a very viable market. And because I'm going to come back around to the handheld, the consoles, devices. But I want to talk more about why getting more options in the handheld gaming PC space is both good and in some ways it's going to be bad, but it's going to be ultimately good because this is going to force companies to start developing batteries that are just able to withstand the needs of these devices. So you can get better than, an hour or 45 minutes or less playing Cyberpunk on medium or low settings on a handheld. You're going to get to a point because so many people are, especially major companies, wanting to get into this space and they want to make their device be completely different than the competitors. I mean, look at the Legion Go to the ROG Ally to the Steam Deck, right? You're going to get more companies that are going to come into this space that are going to innovate in various different ways. And you got to keep in mind, this is all a first generation product. Like all these devices are first generation products. As we get into the second generation, the third generation, the fourth generation, and so on, we're going to get substantially better performance. We're going to get substantially better battery life. I mean, for all intents and purposes, with these Windows PC handhelds, they are very much a gaming laptop in a smaller form factor. Or if you really want to go even further with it, it's basically a Microsoft Surface device that is shrunk down and put in the form factor that it is. However, we are going to get to a point, like I said, better battery life, the better performance. I'm looking forward to when we get the better performance where we can at least run games, especially newer games, at I want to say at least, with medium settings, we can do 15 watts on our devices and not have it just burn through battery life. I mean, 15 watts is not that crazy, but when you look at something like the ROG Ally, that burns through battery like crazy, right? So we are, and if y'all haven't noticed, I'm completely talking off the cuff. It's late. I want to get this podcast out. These are things I just been mulling in my head all day. So yeah, you got to get that happen. You're going to have that happen. You're going to have more companies coming into this. And as that happens, competition, that's the tide where it's going to raise all the boats. But you're also going to see a lot of, and this is where the downside comes in when it comes to the handheld PCs. You're going to have a lot of companies making devices. They're going to cut a lot of corners and then try to undercut Valve, and probably not undercutting Valve, but they're probably going to try and undercut, all the major companies, Lenovo, Asus, and such. And then you're going to get into basically, I don't know how many of you guys remember the netbooks. They were not quite good laptops, right? So I see that we're going to start seeing that level of quality start to come out starting next year, 2024, and then going onwards. We're going to start seeing these lower quality handheld gaming PCs that I wouldn't recommend anyone pick up, but they're going to come out because, they're going to be companies that are going to want to they just want a piece of that pie. But then that's going to go back to the same question I have for Ioneo with their frequent outturn of products, but very little innovation between them. Where's the return on investment? So these companies that are going to rush to make and maybe it's because they're using incredibly cheap parts. But that's something I definitely think we're going to see. I hope to see more companies like when I think about what Alienware showcased back in 2020, I think we're going to see them also take what Lenovo did with the removable Joy-Cons. I know they're not Joy-Cons. I'm going to continue to call them that. I think they're going to take that and probably innovate on that in a better way than what Lenovo has done. That's something I definitely can see happening. And I think ultimately what Lenovo has done is they've eliminated the need for you to need to buy another controller. Like when you think about the ROG Ally, it had that one controller that was like close to, was it $200? I forgot how much it was. I bought it and I've used it all of like 2 times because it's not a great pro controller. But the Rikiri Pro, you bought the Ally, they were pushing that controller, and ultimately you should have just got an Xbox controller. But nonetheless, and and with the limitations of that, you can't navigate through Windows using an external controller with that device. Or maybe you can now with hotkeys and all the other stuff that people have probably whatever programming people have done since, fan patches and such that have allowed that type of capability and performance to be applicable to the controller. But that controller plus the Ally didn't make any sense. But then you look at something like what Lenovo put out, they gave you a really good removable, Joy-Cons, really good removable Joy-Cons that also give you the capability of having Hall effect sensors in them. So you're never going to get stick drift, and you got a touchpad, and you got all this functionality. You can turn it into a mouse for FPS mode. You got all this stuff with it, and it's everything you need is right there on top of something Asus can give you, just a case. So there's just so much that I'm excited for. And other thing, let's touch on this with Nintendo. Now we all know the Switch is outdated. Switch is 7 years, what is it, 6 years, going on 7 years, or is it at 7 years now? 7 years old now? It came out in 2017, March 3rd, 2017, right? So that device is old. It was the chip, the Tegra chip, it was a Tegra X1 chip that it uses, was already outdated when that device came out. And now it is super outdated. But there's, people are still making it work. Third-party companies are still making it work. But we all know the next Nintendo console is right around the corner. I really, and from with all the leaks and everything that have come out, I really think that that's going to be dropping probably March or April of 2024. Now, I'm not putting money on that because I don't know exactly when that's going to come out. But I do think Nintendo has seen what Valve has done. They've seen what all the other competitors have done, and it has shown them that you can have really good performance in that type of form factor. And I think if they emulate what Valve has done with the Steam Deck, especially the Steam Deck OLED, or if they touch on what, our Asus and Lenovo have done with the Lego and the ROG Ally, I think we can get a Switch portably, and keep this in mind. Y'all don't have to agree with me. I'm thinking portably, it can auto shift based on what you're playing between 10 and 15 watts. And then when you dock it, it'll probably go up to 25 or 30 watts, similar to what we currently have now. But it should give us the capability of, at a minimum, 1080p 60 when we are playing handheld. And then, and the reason I say, I know a lot of people like frame rate doesn't matter. We're in 2023, right? 1080p 60 frames per second should be the very, 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 anything sub HD should not even be, that shouldn't be, in my opinion, a standard anymore. But 1080p 60 frames per second should be the thing, in my opinion. And then docking it, you can get up, you can get 4K output. Nintendo's going to have to do that. They can't have a whole nother console generation that isn't. And the reason I say that is because look at the technological advancements that come with TVs, right? TVs and monitors right now. We got 5K, 8K, 12K. I don't know who's paying for a 12K unless you're, Mr. Beast or something. But, we've got these higher resolution screens, TVs, monitors, and such. And the more you upscale 1080p or 720p image, the rougher it looks. So Nintendo, I think, guaranteed is going to give us, if not 4K, then 1440p. I would be fine with that. It needs to be backwards compatible with the Switch. To me, that's a non-negotiable with whatever the successor is, because you've got so many people that are heavily invested in the Switch. Just call it the Switch 2, in my opinion, or Switch Neo, or whatever you want to call it. But maintain, they have a formula, and I know Nintendo likes to beat to their own drum and do whatever, do their own thing. But when you're at a point where you've got people solidly of all age ranges invested in the Switch, same thing y'all did with the Wii, same thing you did with the Super Nintendo and the NES. When you've got something that good, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel, improve upon it. If they want to keep doing flash media, fine. I think the storage for the new Nintendo device, I mean, out the gate, it shouldn't have anything less than 512 gigs of storage, in my opinion. That should be bare minimum. You should have a 512 and a 1 terabyte option. Are they going to make it where you can install bigger hard drive? No, Nintendo's not going to do that. But it needs to have, I think, at least specs comparable to the Lego or the ROG Ally or Steam Deck OLED. And it will stay within that market. Maintain the portability factor and the dockable experience. And there you go. And I have confidence in Nintendo not to screw it up, because I think they've run into enough roadblocks with bad decision making. And as much as I love Nintendo 64, as much as I love the GameCube, as much as I love the Wii U, those weren't great decisions that were made in those eras that they came out. For all intents and purposes, the Wii either. I mean, it's just a souped up GameCube. But I think after finally hitting another massive success, Nintendo is not going to make that same mistake again. Plus, partnerships they have right now with Xbox, possibility of Game Pass coming to Nintendo as well as PlayStation. So you got more access to more games you can play. I honestly think Nintendo's in a good spot. Ultimately, handheld gaming's in a good spot. I mean, we get more. I really want us to have more FPGA devices like the Analog Pocket, mainly because I think Analog needs a competitor because they dominate that market too much in the retro handheld, a retro market, and fuzzy retro handheld market. But yeah, yeah. As y'all can tell, I have no script on this. I don't even have bullet points. I'm just talking off my head. It's the end of the year, you know. I need to take my edible, have myself a beer, and have a good night. I just realized my door is open over here. I was like, oh, okay. Anyways, um, but yeah, I think 2023, especially when you factor in everything that's come in this year, everything we've had. I mean, games have been coming out just stacked. So many games, nonstop. And I don't think 2024 is going to be anywhere near stacked as 2023 was. Because I think the game and tech industry really need to make a point just with 2023. I just think we're going to get greatness going forward. It's a great time to be a gamer. So all that being said, now that we're off the topic of that, I want to talk about I want to talk to y'all on a personal level and talk about this year for me as a creator. 2023 has been a pivotal year for me as a content creator in many aspects. And the reason I say is pivotal, and I've got this. This is for my hair. I'm a hairband that I'm fidgeting with. In case y'all wondering why I keep looking down, it's because I'm fidgeting. Um, 2023 has been a very pivotal year for me for many reasons. Um, as y'all know, I previously had colorectal cancer, stage 3, and I've been in remission for about 6 years now. And I've run into instances of, potentially coming back. I have I'm immunocompromised. Like I have a very weak immune system. So it's a lot of setbacks I've had this year. Getting COVID, you know, really terrible cold that's going around, the flu. Like I've been sick more times this year than I ever have any other year prior in my adult life. And in those times, because I was focusing so heavily on content, I know you guys have probably noticed I'm not uploading anywhere near as much as I used to, especially with shorts. Although I'm going to be doing more shorts now because I'm using Opus Clip. If you haven't heard about that, go check it out. Best way to make shorts because trying to manually sit and do that. I think getting back to the point, I was getting to a point where I was so obsessed, fixated on content that my health felt faltered and I wasn't focusing as much as I needed to on my family. And so all the health setbacks and all that and having to step back. I love content creating, but it never needs to get to the point where it comes before my family and my own health. So Decked Up will still be a weekly podcast. That will be the only podcast that's weekly. Kasanova podcast will be, if not every 2 weeks, then probably once a month. Just because I want to keep that special. I want that to be where I get, game industry, tech industry folks come on and talk. As you guys know, I got one coming up with Konami and Way Forward talking about Contra Operation Galuga. So I'm very excited, and I recorded that a while back. The one show that I have with Lehua, a podcast across worlds, we're gonna make more stuff with that. I'm not sure with the frequency of that, but that's gonna be something that's gonna be coming out more. On her channel. Go give her a sub. YouTube.com/Lehua Superfino. And I'm still working on doing a wrestling podcast because I'm very passionate about wrestling. I just haven't had the time to come up with a name or how I want to go about it because I've got so many projects. And that's the other thing. As a full-time content creator, full-time journalism, I'm migrating my site from Wix over to Squarespace right now. So my site's down. That's stressful. We've got like a decade worth of journalism that is inaccessible right now. So, journalism, podcasting, all this, the reviews for tech and gaming that I'm doing. I got more partnerships that are coming in, more things to where, I have to be a little bit more selective about what I'm dedicating my time to, and whatever I do has to come after my family. And then after my family is my own health. So 2024 is going to be a much more concentrated effort of like focusing on certain things. Like there's not going to be more Kasanova podcast, DeckedUP collaboration because, get y'all to watch more one collaborate, and that's not going to be happening. Other thing too, I guess I can touch on it because, I keep getting comments about my hair and everything. I figure I'll go ahead and talk about it because I feel I touched on this before, but I guess people don't pay attention. So yes, I was bald at the beginning of the year. I've done a lot of things to start growing my hair back, and I did grow my hair. My hair grows fast. So I started growing my hair, and as it got to about this long, it's like, in the fro, and then as you guys saw, I got curl locks, my dreadlocks, curl locks. And then when re-dyed it and got it relocked, and it's longer. Got extra extensions. That's all it is. Just change up my look. And I've had people say, "Oh, it's a wig," and all. So it's not. It's really not. It's just interesting how obsessed people are with that. I find that very funny. And even if it was, here's my thing. I nearly fucking died from cancer. I nearly died 2 years ago from pneumonia. Nearly died last year from pneumonia. Nearly died this year from pneumonia. Nearly died from that cold that came out. Nearly died from the flu. I've been at death's door many times. And I'm still here. So if I want to grow my hair out, I want to get extensions, or I want to change my look, I can do whatever the fuck I want to do. Because god damn it, I have fought to stay alive. And if that bothers you, you can go elsewhere. That's all I gotta say. Hope y'all had a good one. If y'all enjoyed this episode, if y'all are excited for next year, all the content coming out and all that, hey, consider giving us a subscribe. Follow us on social media and all the other stuff. But all that out the way, the biggest thing I want to say is, Happy New Year. I hope whatever your New Year's resolutions, I hope they become your reality. If you want to lose weight, or if you want a new job, or you want a new car, whatever, go out and make it happen. If you want to change your look, that's another thing. Hell, people are so fixated on my hair. Y'all haven't realized I've lost over 100 pounds. I started this year off at 297 pounds. And I am 191 pounds right now. That's because I got on top of eating, diet, above all, supplements, and sleep. Just trying to remove as much stress from it. I've dropped a lot of weight, changed my look up, grew out my hair, changed my hairstyle, and I'm just gonna live life to the fullest. Because who knows? If I, and I don't have any lip to knock on, but you know, given that I don't have a strong immune system, I'm very prone to getting sick and getting deathly sick. You know, if I die in 2024, at least I'll know that I did everything I wanted to do. I was told I would never be uh, I would never be able to do content creating. It's my full-time career. I'd never have more than 2 subscribers on YouTube. We're trending towards 32,000 subscribers now. I'd never had millions of views, past, way past millions of views overall. Um, told I'd never be able to work with the gaming tech industry. Actively doing both and on a first name basis. So I'm going to do what I do and live life. I'm going to enjoy it. I mean, I've even never graduated high. I'd never till I was never graduate high school, graduate college. Till I was never, till I was gonna get kicked out of college. Graduated. Got a degree in marketing, bachelor's in marketing, bachelor's in journalism, bachelor's in psychology. Anybody told you what you can't do, and let them watch you succeed. So that's all I got for y'all. Stay safe, stay up, stay motivated, stay blessed. Have aloha and happy new year. See y'all in the next one. Peace.